everyone. My story is about Care4BrittleBones. Essentially, it's a story about change. And change is something that's known to all of us, right? In one shape or another. So let me start by asking you a question. When it comes to change, how do you feel about it? Are you on the positive side? Do you like change? Do you feel energized by it and you're usually successful with it? Or are you a bit more careful and you have had experience that change can be frustration, chaos, loss, bad things you don't want to have in your life? It's a broad spectrum, right? And there's a lot of science around how change feels to people, and it's all equally valid. However, with all these types of people, it's also true that it feels fundamentally different to everyone if it's a change you've been able to expect and you've been able to prepare for, or if it's a change that hits you completely out of the blue. Maybe messes up your day, messes up an entire year, or impacts your entire life. The point I'm trying to make here, sometimes life gives us these kind of unexpected challenges that really hit deeply. And it almost feels like your life is going to end. And I'm trying to convey a message here that when that happens, it actually is an opportunity to fundamentally reinvent your life. And that may not be such a bad thing. So, flashback, back to the time where my life was still good, so to speak. I was born into a very warm and loving family. I went to school, everything went well. I went to study, studied law, and that was, again, going well, so I did a PhD in law. Eventually, I met this really hot and sexy blonde Dutch man, and he fell in love with me. I was so lucky, and I'm overstating here for impact, that's obvious. But he is very gorgeous, and we got married. And when we hoped to have children, actually, we had the number one. And again, when we hoped to have another one, there we were with a second wonderful baby. And on top of everything, I had a career in this wonderful company that I found very fulfilling. So I changed from law to HR. I changed from Germany to the Netherlands. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm so good with change. It was obviously the easy part of the change side. The more difficult part started when we had our third child, a girl called Sophie. When she was just 8 weeks old, she broke a bone in her leg, this leg. And if you just picture it, an 8-week-old baby, a bone is small like that. And still it is the strongest bone in a human body. I was not able to kind of understand why that had happened. I had watched over her entire life, every minute, and still it happened. And I could only come up with one moment where that might have occurred, which was when she was shaken in a maxi-cosi pretty heavily, but just shaken, and she was strapped into that thing. And I was so shocked by it, and I guess that showed. So at the hospital, they also said, this is a weird story. Doesn't sound necessarily like something we, can just take like that. We better keep you in hospital to make sure she's safe. So there was a suspicion of child abuse there. And that's how it looked like. She was in traction. And quite honestly, till today, I don't know whether it was the medical necessity that, to put her into traction, which is what you're seeing here, or whether it was a way to keep us also in the hospital to keep Sophie safe. It was an appropriate treatment, let me be very clear on that. It was a difficult time. After a 2 weeks period of time in the hospital, which we spent obviously together there, a very experienced doctor said, let's not just make sure she's all right. Let's take a full body x-ray and, look. And I remember when the radiologist walked towards us and then said, you know what, she doesn't have one fracture. She has 4. And we believe, with all the other symptoms we've seen, she probably has a very rare disorder called osteogenesis imperfecta. Usually that's something, just happening 10 times a year in the Netherlands. And it causes essentially extremely fragile bones that break from virtually nothing. that was the change we didn't see coming, and that certainly we didn't necessarily want for our life, let's be honest. We had the good news then, that obviously we were able to take her home because there was no child abuse going on. The bad news, however, was that this rare disorder was now sitting on the table and staring us into the face, and we were terrified. How to take care of this little girl that was so fragile. Many of you may have children, and if you picture a small baby and you try to take her out of bed in the morning, try to nurse her, try to also put little clothes onto her, these little arms into little clothes, already for normal parents with normal children, that can be a very scary moment. Transporting her from A to B, we just really held our breath all the time, and we also felt we don't want to give her to anyone else, really. We wanted to protect her ourselves. So our world became very small. I remember waking up every morning with that feeling of, gosh, this can't be happening. Remember this wonderful protected life. This is not what it was supposed to be. And I was so scared of everything that would happen. And that period went on for a long time, weeks, months, and sometimes it really occurred after a year or so. And I would love to tell you that all these fears we had in this early time didn't materialize, but actually they did in many ways. Sophie is 7 years old by now. She's had 13 fractures, and obviously they continue to happen every now and then. She has broken from virtually nothing at times. Once I put her gently onto my hip, I remember that, and that broke one of her bones. Need to deal with that. Her leg by now looks like that, which is an engineering work of art, but also what keeps her going. So there was a huge impact from the many surgeries and operations and physiotherapies and other treatments that were necessary to, bring her up till now. It had an impact on the boys, I'm sure. Oftentimes we needed to be in the hospital or anything else whilst they wanted us to be at the hockey playground. It had an impact on our marriage. My husband, and I love him dearly, but he said one evening, on a Sunday evening, I remember, that he's so glad every time when Sophie is back in bed and she has survived another weekend with her mom. We had different care levels and we needed to work through them, and that was not always easy. It was an impact on our financial situation because one of us needed to stop working to provide a bit of a stability when things happened again. And then there was this challenge of being able to just function each and every day under a Damocles sword. It can happen any moment in time. The worst moment that we have had with Sophie so far is when she was 5 years old and she broke her neck. I didn't even know you can survive something like that. We had spent a whole day in the hospital going through examinations, and it was extremely tiring and difficult. And at the end of the day, the doctor said, well, actually, it looks like everything stayed about in place. She doesn't have paralysis or numbness. So we put a brace on that girl and you can take her home. Just make sure when you're at home, she's kept still for a couple of weeks, and then we'll see. Good luck. So, here we were. And we were on our way home in the taxi. And I remember that moment extremely clearly. She was sitting in the back and had this brace on, and she was in pain, and we were all completely exhausted. A really tiring day. And then she said with a little voice, "You know what, Mommy? I'm still the luckiest girl in the world." And she kind of always calls herself that way, and don't ask me why. I really am not the type of mother who tells her that. And then she gave me 5 reasons, and she's 5 years old only. 1, she had driven an ambulance, which she found kind of cool. There was a doctor who made fun in the emergency room. She got a present, which was a plastic spinning thing, 20 euro cents. She was driving a taxi now, which really she hadn't done many times, and that she was allowed to sleep in her own bed that night. For me, that moment really hit home. If in such a moment of pain as well as exhaustion, She is able to say something positive. Who am I to drag her down with my mode? And I just have to find something in myself somewhere, no idea where, that is also positive and strong for her. She deserves that so badly. And so I started to look actively almost and try to do things like she did. Like, for instance, saying some of the little small things, whilst, obviously there was other things going on, but I tried to point on those more. And eventually that built the courage, as also others in the family did so. And we developed a bigger courage than we ever had before. And it actually helped us then to open our eyes. And instead of looking backwards to what we had lost, look forward and actually face the reality that we have been dealt with, that frankly we had not really wanted to know until that very point. We were so absorbed looking at Sophie and how she was suffering at times. So we didn't really want to see that, but then we wanted. What we saw at that time was this. Sophie is 1 out of 500,000 people. 500,000 people that break so many times, it's just hard to explain or even picture it. 50, 100, 200 fractures, or more than 300 even have been reported. Children that break every 2 months or 3 months. I know children that actually close a pen, or one child that closes a pen, and from that broke an arm. A child that has been coughing and breaking a rib. A child that has been turning around because there was a dog barking and has been breaking a leg from that. It's unbelievable. And that's just the fractures. There's so many other things that are going on. At the same time, surprisingly, when you meet those people, they have this amazing sense of humor and lightness and actually kind of putting things in perspective ability that is absolutely stunning. It's not a sad group of people, but definitely they go through a lot of pain. We also looked around in the medical field, not just in the Netherlands, but globally. There are a couple of amazingly inspiring, very skilled and committed doctors. However, they are not really working together. And even though technology has made huge steps forward in terms of the genetics fields, particularly in the last 5 years, more has happened than ever in the entire medical history together, things are not happening here at all. And the question is, why is that? No funding. No funding for research because it's a rare disorder. And that's a very typical thing for a rare disorder. You don't have government funding, there's no commercial trigger for the pharmaceutical industry, so nothing's going to happen. However, we now found this courage, which by now we call unbreakable spirit. Breakable bones, unbreakable spirit, something very symptomatic about these people with OI. And we learned it from our little one, but there's more people out there that have that. And we said, let's try to impact that space. And we started with, some small things, which is setting up a foundation, which is located in the Netherlands, but it's really an international one. Care4BrittleBones. One simple vision, fundraise for more research, for a better quality of life for these people. And once we've done that, we said, well, we better make sure that the OI community is supporting that. Because to begin with, we were 3 people, our neighbor, my husband, and me. And all 3 of us, we didn't have OI ourselves. So you need to make sure this is really fully supported by people who have it. And so we started to talk to them and involve them, and we found great support and open arms to go ahead. And everyone was asking, how can we help as well? Because it's obvious. The pain is so great each and every day. They can't wait for better solutions. And they also see that there are other rare diseases like ALS or cystic fibrosis that have about the same number of people and get millions each and every year. Well, in this case, there's hardly anything at all happening from a fundraising perspective. And that's exactly what we would like to change. So once we had figured that out, we started to talk to other people in our network and also to the network of the OI community around us. And we found that there were, in a very short amount of time, an amazing amount of projects that started to come up. Lots of people that are sitting in the room actually have also been involved in some of them. People running the CPC for us, or participating in a car rally, all kinds of fun events, a clothes sale, which I actually got this jacket from, so it went to my own charity. It was a very amazing experience, and this started in January. By now, we are 1 year down the road, have 100,000 euros fundraised. We will need millions, that's for sure. And at the same time, we know we will keep it up for the next 10, 20 years. So we're learning every time and we will get better. The positive impact this has had on our environment and us as a family is tremendous. So I see my children going out and talking about OI and how important it is to include people with OI. The whole school is engaged and does several things. Had a good impact on my husband, who I by now know is not just hot and sexy, but also my very best companion in this stride. And it has changed me in that sense, that I'm more kind of realistic about my ability to deal with change, which probably was not all that good to begin with, but I'm learning to be more lenient and flexible. Also, I do believe I've become much stronger because I have a different frame of reference to refer to. Rather than the pink-colored whole world that I came from, I know now a bit more of what the world actually also is all about. And what I'd like to just share with you today to close is, if ever a change hits you, a change that you have not been waiting for, that really hits you in a way that you feel your life is ending, have your tears and have your mourning, because that's all part of it. And eventually seek out that unbreakable spirit inside of yourself, because that's not a disorder. And you will find it eventually, and you will see your life being reinvented, and life on that other side of change is actually quite good.